If I don't, that's cool. I'd rather rap than to go back to school. Pull back the tool and let a bitch loose like a mad pit bull. And you get smashed in the Yu-Gi-Oh duel. And what a wonderful start.
What is poppin' on my primetime people? We are back in here with another one. And this one is gonna be my most meaningful in terms of deep diving into a concept. I want to break down a very serious topic with you guys, and it's something I see very frequently on Twitter, Instagram, all of that. It's a conversation upon cultural appropriation. But first, make sure you drop a like, subscribe, comment, and make sure you let me know how you feel upon this topic. What do you think cultural appropriation is? How do you think it's gotten to the point where we try to cancel people from just wanting to explore other cultures? Why do you think it's simply who can explore this culture? What can you take from the culture? And what are you required to do to gain entry to the culture? Do you think you have to be invited to the cookout to gain from this culture? Just comment and make sure we discuss things. I love conversation, and I really just want to make sure we have a very open and friendly discourse of dialogue on this channel. What we're going to discuss today is white culture, or the lack thereof it. What I mean by the lack of white culture, as a very brief synopsis so you know what points I'm speaking to towards this video, is in white culture through the early 60s, 70s, through American society propagated a culture and a certain look, and those were your idols, the Johnny Cashes, the Elvises, you know, the common cut individual, smooth, charming, handsome, maybe blue eyes, potentially blonde, brown hair. You know, there's multiple types, but there is a specific white American male that is the ideal image male. That's not an attack on them. This isn't an attack on white people. This isn't an angry influencer trying to cancel you guys. This is somebody who's actually looking at these things from both sides and understands the perspectives. And I really want to break down not only why cultural appropriation is already such a cliche topic to argue upon, but why it's not really a relevant topic. Like, you can't get on just white people for appropriating culture. And even if white people do appropriate culture, which some do to a certain extent, it's not an anger thing. I'm not mad at you. It's not your fault. You're not stealing culture because you adamantly want to steal and take from people anymore. This isn't the pillaging days. You don't conquer anymore. It's a lack of having your own culture. And I'd like to explain how I've seen white culture decline, and it's a conversation I've seen not many people have. One of the first things we're gonna point out is, as a factor of this video, you need to know when I say race, race isn't real. Race is perception. Race is not DNA. Race is simply perception. To be white is to not be black in America. To be black in America is to not be white. Those words have no meaning. All of these things happened because race was created to divide people. What was used before that was wealth. You can divide people with what they own, what they make, and the things they have access to. When you weren't able to divide people with wealth and money anymore, they used race as the way to do it, which we'll speak upon. I'd like to shout out the biggest inspiration of this video, my man F.D Signifier. I'll make sure I have his link to his channel below. I want you guys to check out his channel because he makes some really dope content, and it's just dope seeing a like-minded individual blow up on YouTube, and it's been a very big inspiration on me to speak my mind. I've done very similar content speaking on the issue going on in Texas with the teenage girl, but it's just great to see somebody else dive into these topics and promote conversation. That's all I do on this channel. Specifically, I want you guys to go check out his Bo Burnham video. Halfway through, he talks about white liberal performativism, and in white liberal performativism, people take buzzwords and people take things from cultures they don't understand. Typically, in this video, he was talking about the sensitive issues, police, how race plays a factor in how we live life, and taking accountability for that as a white person in terms of why people take those buzzwords and start trying to be woke. or trying to be all being and shouting Black Lives Matter, and it's in their bios, and they scream these things without knowing the meaning. But that's not what this conversation is upon. Like I said, I invite you guys to go check out his channel. Really dope content. But specifically, this video is going to be about the decline of white culture. White culture since the early 2000s, pretty much ending with boy bands, NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, maybe going into the different punk rock kind of music in the late early 2000s. White culture has seen a decline. Not to say white people are less prevalent, that'd obviously be a false statement, but there is no longer a clear line, which there really was never a necessity to have, between what's white and what's black. Back in the day, in the 90s, there was a very clear line between black people music and white people music. White people were innovating. You were coming out with things like grunge. You had Nirvana. You had Metallica. You got, not the 90s specifically, but just white people in general. You guys have innovated for long periods of times. You guys have had your relevant artists, your icons, your creators, your film directors, your movie stars, everything. Every culture has somebody that's relevant, and that's great. That's not what this is about. It's not an attack on that. What this is about is how after the mid-2000s, where have those people gone? You still have your icons from back in the day, but where are the new icons? Besides actresses and the occasional white rapper, that's pretty much it, you know? You guys aren't revolutionizing sounds anymore. A lot of what's projected in the media is all derivative of black culture, and that's not to say that everyone is stealing black culture. Black culture is just what's happening to be prevalent, and to be honest, black culture has always been stolen from. Black culture has always been stolen from, starting back with the people I named, such as Elvis. Elvis was a heavy stealer of black culture, everything from the dance moves, to the gyrations, to the rhythms, to the cadence. He just started trying to be cool. Being cool was a black aesthetic. There was no cool white guys. That wasn't the thing. Black people brought swag. So, black culture has always been taken from. It's not a new thing. It's not the first time. But I think it's being pushed harder than ever due to social media. I think everything is on an influx due to TikTok and social media such as Instagram and, TikTok, especially the dances, but beauty standards and everything have evolved via black culture. And people have to realize that if we always wanted to make everything about cultural appropriation, you could be angry about everything, which wouldn't make sense because you'd walk around with a chip on your shoulder, and that's no fun. Beauty standards back in the 70s all the way through to the mid-90s were the skinny supermodel type woman. Only via the late 90s into the 2000s where females like Lil' Kim were more sought after and desired for. Females had hips, and desired bigger waists and bigger butts and bigger lips. All of those were seen as unattractive features. Not that they are unattractive features, they were seen as unattractive features due to the media. You know who had those features first? In the music, like I said, there was a relevant white culture. Between boy bands, rock music, pop music, you guys had your own defining genre, and hip-hop was its own bubble, where black people were creating in the spaces talking about their environment. Not to say white people were never allowed in these environments, there was just two clear, different environments. One of the things I want to talk about is with everything merging like it has, it's not a negative. It's not, oh no, we need to have cultures separate. The thing with things coming from other cultures is just making sure you understand where they came from. It comes with not trying to take ownership or trying to forget where something came from. We tend to make people forget their cultures in America and become American. What we call American culture doesn't exist. There's no such thing as American culture. There's no such thing as white culture. There's no such thing as black culture. There's white Caucasian American culture because white doesn't exist. As I said earlier, to be white is to not be black. What is white American culture? It's everything they've pushed since the founding fathers. What is black American culture? It's everything they've told you we are since the founding fathers, and we've took that and spun it how we have and done with that what we will, because we aren't what somebody says we are. We are our own culture, and you develop that. And the thing is, once you just appreciate and understand where things come from, things are always smoother. People like to argue about things such as white people having weave in their hair, white people dancing like us, listening to our music. I love to see those things. I want our culture to be shared. Our culture is beautiful. Our women are beautiful. Our food is delicious. Everything is good when everything is good. But when things are bad, you can't just put the culture down, and that's where things go left. People want to adopt the culture positives, but nobody wants to adopt the negatives of the culture. It was said best by Earth Gang, I want to say. Everybody want to be a nigga till it's time to be a nigga, then nobody want to be a nigga.
Okay, everybody want to be a nigga, but nobody want to be a nigga when it's time to be a nigga.
So with that being said, what I'm essentially saying is, white people, I think you're a little lost. And I'm not angry at you from wanting to adopt things from our culture. I love that you want to take part in our culture, and we would be happy to share it with you. You just have to understand what comes with stepping into something that's not yours. The same way I wouldn't step into your home and throw my feet up on your couch and act like I know everything, it wouldn't be cool or nice to do that, stepping into a culture with things you don't know about. To take from black culture, or especially to succeed or make money from taking from black culture, and then to remain ignorant of the issues or the things and the plights that we go through in this culture, is not fair. It's not only not fair, but it's damn near despicable, because you're eating off the backs of so many people suffering, and that's where it comes. When you're able to benefit off of the appropriation without attributing anything back to the culture. When you take but don't give, that's all it simply is. And like I said, I simply think you're lost. Let's talk about what white culture is believed to be. Typically, right now, if I was to say, imagine you're a straight white person, you're a typical straight up white person. You're imagining somebody in maybe some boat shoes, a nice polo shirt, maybe some Starbucks, anything pumpkin spice, maybe no seasoning in the food, who's to know, but you already have an image of what white people are and what white culture is. The same way there's an image of what black people are and what black culture is. When you say, if I were to say, close your eyes and imagine a black person walking up to you on the street, it would not be the same person in boat shoes, khakis, or a Starbucks cup. It would probably be someone who looked like me. And that's what America has done. That's simply what it is. What white culture really is remnants of British culture, and that's to the closest extent. It goes so much further back historically. We're not going to get into the historical aspect, but what I want to say is, if you really want to see how they used wealth to divide us before they switched to race, and then switching to race, look up Bacon's Rebellion. Bacon's Rebellion was essentially where they turned a huge labor force of poor white people against black people by saying they took your jobs. Does that sound familiar? Like I said, go look that up. That's not what this specific video is about, but we can get into something like that if that's something you guys would like to do. White culture is simply a very simple rebellion of the British. you have to keep in mind, America being one of the youngest nations out here, we are essentially a teenager when it comes to being a nation. We rebelled. We were under British rule. We were tired of being taxed, and along with kicking them out the door, we had to set up our own boundaries, and we weren't British anymore. We were American. But to be American for a while was so vague. We were over here with the Native Americans, and we were out here struggling. To be American wasn't a thing for a while. You were just free people from Britain. You weren't under British rule anymore. It was the place of freedom. So that's how we became the melting pot. If you were to ask Benjamin Franklin what an American was, the answer would shock you, and that's our founding fathers. So when you imagine white culture and you imagine prosperity and you imagine wealth and you imagine fanciness and no struggle, all of that was something that they modeled after themselves because that's what the British had. They were trying to just be from under Britain. They didn't want the fanciness, they didn't want the accents anymore. You peep how the dialect changed. America, for the longest, was an illiterate country. We weren't focused on trying to be wealthy or prosperous. We wanted to be hard workers, but then once we started dividing people by wealth, it became, how do I let these people know I'm above them? I'm white. We had to create a distinction. How am I better than you guys besides my money? I'm white. That's how I'm better. It's not how that is today. That's just how they had to define themselves back then. You're black. You are black. And you are worth nothing. But what am I? To be white is to be not black. That's all it was created for, to divide us just as much as they did with wealth. Race isn't real. Cultural appropriation isn't real because we are the melting pot. We're originally supposed to be an amalgamation of all the cultures being the melting pot. But we tend to fight that or limit ourselves to who can get a bite from the pot. And that's not fair. All we have to do is realize if you take something from the pot, put something back in. And that's it. I really want your guys' opinions on this. This is a very quick version of something I'm working on, and I plan on bringing a sit down talk about this too. This is something I really want to break down, and I'm excited to break down a lot more topics like these and get deeper with it and get a lot better with this. But this is something that has been on my mind. Once again, shout out to F.D Signifier. Make sure you check out his link in the description. Check out some of his content. That man has dope talks, inspires great conversation, and that's just what we like to do around here, yo. Make sure you drop a like, subscribe, comment, and make sure you let me know how you feel upon this topic. So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. Make sure you have a good day. Peace.